হ্যাঁ ঠিক আছে। আর রিমি এবার রেডি হয়ে যা, 4টে বাজে, শুরু করে দে।
না বলো।
ম্যাডাম এসে
রবির
গেছেন?
ম্যাডাম ওয়েট করছেন।
ঠিক আছে
রবির, হ্যাঁ ম্যাডাম ওয়েট করছেন, লগ ইন করে নাও।
ম্যাডাম
ম্যাডাম
ঢুকলে
ওয়েট
পরে
করছেন।
তারপরে
রবির
স্টার্ট করছি।
ম্যাডাম দেখো সানুবেন বলে বোধহয় ওনার জিমেল আইডিটা আছে, SANUBAN, পেয়েছো? হ্যাঁ রিকোয়েস্ট আসবে, ওনাকে দেখাচ্ছে যে লগ ইন সামওয়ান হোয়েন সামওয়ান লেটস ইউ ইন, ওনার কাছে এটা আসছে, তার মানে তোমার কাছে রিকোয়েস্ট আসছে, দেখো। আচ্ছা আচ্ছা।
কলতার মাইক অফ করা।
ম্যাডাম করেছেন এবং একই বলছে, একই বলছে। ট্রাই করেছেন। হ্যাঁ দেখ, একদম 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 ওটাই ওটাই। ম্যাডামের ওই স্ক্রিনটা আসছে, আস্কিং টু জয়েন, ঠিক আছে, তারপরে আর এগোতে পারছেন না বোধহয়। তুমি কি অ্যাকসেপ্ট করছো যেটা আসছে? তাহলে ম্যাডাম ওই স্ক্রিনটা দেখছেন কি করে? নিউ মেল গেছে আবার?
একটু এসেছেন নাকি না? এসেছেন
এসে গেছেন
মৈত্রী
তো?
ব্যানার্জি।
বুঝতে পারছি।
হ্যাঁ মৈত্রী ব্যানার্জি এসেছেন। হ্যাঁ রিমি এবার শুরু কর। তারপর মৈত্রীদি
স্টার্ট
ইয়ে
করবো।
করা আছে। হ্যাঁ স্পিকারটা অফ। হ্যাঁ এবার ঠিক আছে।
ম্যাডাম এসেছেন?
হ্যাঁ এসেছেন,
আচ্ছা
মৈত্রী ম্যাডাম এসে গেছেন।
বেশ, তাহলে আমি শুরু করে দিচ্ছি।
হ্যাঁ প্লিজ।
Good afternoon, everyone. A very kind welcome to all of you to the second session of webinar series organized by Durgapur Govt College on interpretation of survival strategies of nature and human amidst the pandemic and natural disaster. So I request all the participants on Google Meet to kindly put your microphone off to avoid noise. For the participants on YouTube Live, please leave your questions in the comment box. After 15 or 20 minutes, the lecture session will start. We have already a fantastic session on 11th July by Professor Soumitra Basu. Today we'll hear from Dr. Moitreyee Chakrabarty, Head and Assistant Professor, Postgraduate Department of Conservation Biology, Durgapur Govt College. Her research interest includes ecological modeling, biodiversity and wildlife along with statistical ecology. She has authored a number of research articles in national and international journals, all repute, along with many book chapters. She is actively involved in social activities related with conservation of nature and natural resources. Today, Dr. Chakrabarty will talk on wildlife woes, precarious status of wildlife and their habitats after the natural disasters. It's a great pleasure and honor to have you, ma'am, as our speaker for today's session. Now, may I request you, ma'am, to present your lecture, please.
Good evening to everybody. Do I have to present the presentation or you will do it for my? Am I audible?
Yeah,
Yes.
you are audible, and
Yes.
if please
You
start.
can do your presentation, and if you face any problem, then we can handle
Then
it. No
yeah.
problem.
Okay. Let me try.
Oh,
Because it's raining heavily here, so the net connection is very poor. So let me try. Is it visible?
No,
yeah,
not you. Yeah.
Everybody can see it.
yeah.
So we can start. I can start now, right?
Yes, you can start, ma'am, please.
Okay. A very good evening to everybody. I'm here to give a presentation. I was approached, and it's a very relevant topic that I've been and I'm very thankful to Tia Thakur Government College and the officer in charge for inviting me in such a relevant webinar series to share my views during this pandemic and the natural disasters that we have faced from the start of 2020. And I have chosen this topic of wildlife woes, the precarious status of wildlife and their habitats after natural disasters, because I thought that this year has started with a global pandemic that have made us rethink about the effect that these kind of disasters have on us, and not only on us but also on the other living organisms that are present around us. We are very much busy with our own lives, and sometimes we have forgotten about how to take care of nature. And from that point of view, I thought that this webinar series with the title of Interpretation of the Survival Strategies of Nature and Human Amidst this Pandemic or Natural Disaster is very relevant. And from that point of view, I am trying to present some of my ideas and views on this aspect. So just going into the let's have a small idea about what disaster is. Now, according to the, hello, can everybody hear me? Hello?
Yeah, you are audible.
Okay. Yeah, because sometimes the noise, there is cracking sounds coming. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Now, according to the Center of Research of Epidemiology of Disaster, this has been an organization which is working on disaster from 1973. They have given a small definition which says that any unforeseen event or sudden event that cannot be controlled under local capacity and needs international or national external assistance can be defined as a disaster. And such kind of unprecedented event which causes a huge loss and destruction of human life can be considered as a disaster. And here in the definition, you can see that the main focus is damage, destruction of human suffering, but less importance is given to what kind of damage and destruction these disasters have on the biodiversity and wildlife. And from that point of view, it came to my mind that why not we talk about the destruction the natural disasters have on the wildlife also. Now, to begin with, disasters mainly happen to those areas which are more vulnerable due to some of the aspects like physical aspects, social aspects, economic aspects, as well as environmental aspects that increase the frequency of disasters. Now, if we go through the history of disasters, we have seen that the number of natural disasters that have taken place in the last decade have increased very much. Why is it so? Because there is an increase in the developmental pattern of our social and economic lifestyle, which may have increased the frequency of such kind of disasters. Now, if you go into the emergency events database, you can see that they have divided these disasters into two basic categories. One is the natural disaster that I am talking about, and another one is the technological. The term they have used is technological, but we can say that these are the human or man-made disasters that affect our life. Now, here I am here to talk about natural disasters, so we cannot ignore the anthropogenic effects that also results in several kinds of natural disasters. So basically, the subcategories of natural disasters include the geophysical. That means the disasters which happens due to any kind of changes in the landform. Then the meteorological, that means any kind of change in the climate or in the weather. Hydrological, an imbalance in the water cycle. Climatological, in a broader sense, when there is a huge change in the climate. And finally, biological, that we are facing now, that is the global pandemic of the COVID-19 virus infestation. Now, these are the basic broader categories or the subtypes of the natural disasters. I have mentioned that bio includes kinds of epidemic which can be done by a virus, a bacteria, or a fungi, or a protozoa. There can be insect infestations. We have just a few months back, we have faced the locust infestation that have been there in the northwestern region of our country. That is the locust infestation. So these are also the biological type of natural disaster. The meteorological ones include the storms. Just 1 month back, in the 20th May, we have faced the massive Amphan attack that have damaged mostly several regions of the southern Bengal and Orissa, followed by the hydrological impacts. We have already seen in the newspapers that The North Bengal region is severely flooded now due to heavy rainfall. The Assam also is being facing floods. So there are general floods, coastal floods, and these floods are not only the only threat that comes, but along with the flood also there are several wet mass movements like landslides and avalanche and rockfall. Finally, the climatological, due to the global climate change, we are now facing different kinds of climatic conditions like the heat shocks and the cold shocks that are there, drought and forest fires that are very much common nowadays. And finally, the geophysical ones, that is the earthquakes, the volcanoes, and the landslides or avalanche that are associated with them. So these are the basic types and subtypes. Now, according to the statistics that have been provided by the National Disaster Management Authority, it's a small archive section of the Government of India, and they have said that India is mainly prone to earthquakes, floods, cyclones, and you can see the statistics that 68% of India's land is prone to drought, 60% to earthquake, and these disasters have affected 85% of the Indian land and more than 50 million people each year. Now, why India is so much prone to natural disaster? Why such is the case? Why so many natural disasters are taking place very frequently? Now, this is mainly due to the condition that India has a variability in its landform and physiography. This term physiography, we mean that India has different kinds of landforms starting from desert, the Himalayan mountains, there are the Deccan plateaus, then there are the coastal plains, the northern riverine plains. So different kinds of physiographic conditions along with different climatic conditions have made India much more prone to natural disasters. And nowadays, India has also been more prone to natural disasters because of developmental pattern in modern life which are not sustainable. There are unplanned urbanization and industrialization, followed by environmental degradation, which have increased the risk of India towards natural disaster. Now, here are the few cases. I have only pointed out or picked out some of the disasters that have happened in the last 2 decades. We all know about the super cyclone Phony, which happened in 1999, that have drastically affected Orissa, then followed by the Gujarat earthquake. And mainly these 2 natural disasters have made our government think about the management plans that are now being at work after so many years. So these 2 are the major natural disasters that have caused or made India rethink about the management plans that had to be taken to reduce the risk of natural disasters, because we cannot control a disaster. Natural disasters cannot be controlled, but we can prevent or we can at least mitigate some of the natural disaster issues. Now, then there's the Indian Ocean tsunami. This is a very read about event that happened in 2004, and this is also known as the Sumatra Andaman earthquake that have resulted in the Indian Ocean tsunami and have killed millions of lives at that time. And you can see that India is more prone to floods. And I have picked out 3 important floods that have happened in the last 2 decades. One is the Bihar flood in 2007, followed by the Uttarakhand flash floods due to a cloudburst that happened in 2013, affecting several lives in the Uttarakhand region. And there are forest fires. I have only said 2018 and 19, but in the forest fire cases in India is very common from start, because India has several dry and deciduous regions which are more prone to fires. And in 2020, we are now facing the COVID-19 pandemic. This is also a kind of natural disaster, because this disaster has given us a wake-up call that yes, we are now at the verge to rethink about the lifestyle that we are having, and we also must rethink about how we should protect and conserve our nature. Followed by the Amphan that has devastated several regions of South Bengal as well as Orissa. These are some of the statistics of the events that I have earlier discussed. This is the super cyclone, the Phony, that happened in Orissa in 1999. It happened in 29th October. The speed of the cyclone, it was called the super cyclone because cyclone has several categories, and it is named as cyclone in the Asian parts of the Asian continents, these countries of Asia, but mainly the hurricanes and typhoons occur commonly in the western parts of the world. And the speed of the cyclone was 260 kilometers per hour. You can imagine the strength of the wind that have passed through Orissa at that time, and the effect that it can have on the people, the lives, the buildings, or whatever maybe. And it killed about more than 30,000 lives at that time. But little information is given about what kind of effect this particular super cyclone had on wildlife or on biodiversity in that area. We have some glimpses of the saying that Nandankanan of Orissa, that's a reserve or a zoo, a zoological garden, was devastated at that time, but little is known about the effect of this cyclone on the wildlife at that time. Then there is the Gujarat earthquake that happened in 2009.
Ma'am, 1 second. Actually, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Would you kindly make your the PPT full screen? Actually, it is seen on the hub screen. Just make it full screen, then the participants can see it fully.
Can be seen? Okay, now it's okay?
No, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Ma'am, yes, it is okay.
Now this is fine?
It's not okay? Okay,
yes,
okay. Can I continue?
Okay,
thank you.
please.
Okay. So now next, coming to the next incident, because I said that the 1999 cyclone as well as the Gujarat earthquake, they were the eye-openers to the government of India, and they have taken up steps, several steps for mitigating such kind of disasters. So it happened on 26 January. These are just the facts that I'm discussing. The interesting thing about Gujarat earthquake is that the intensity was very high. It was 7.7, resulting in 20,000 deaths. And this is the earthquake that happened about southwest region of the Kutch region of Gujarat, and taken up several lives at that time. But again, to say that most of the information that you can get from the internet, you can Google, you can go to the different disaster databases, websites, you can see that less information available on what kind of effect it had on wildlife. Because I am just emphasizing on the fact that most of the instances that have happened in India, less information and less strategies are being taken to preserve the wildlife. Coming to the tsunami that happened in 2004, it was a very disastrous event that happened in 2004 on 26th December. And the earthquake that happened was Sumatra Andaman earthquake. The epicenter was in the west coast of Sumatra, and the intensity was much more. It was 9.1 to 9.3. And the death, this death that I have given here is 10,136 is only in India, but the death was millions if we can consider the countries that were affected at that time. You can see the pictures here that how much devastation it must have caused at that time during this tsunami. Now, this earthquake, this is a coastal earthquake, and it is different from the earthquake that happened in Bhuj. That means in the Gujarat earthquake, it was known as the Bhuj earthquake. So these coastal earthquakes, they have, we know that earthquakes are sometimes followed by aftershocks, and sometimes the aftershocks are much more devastating than the original one. And in case of coastal earthquakes, if the earthquake occurs in the oceanic floor, they generate the shock waves or short waves that are known as tsunami waves. Now, sometimes it may so happen that these tsunami waves do not cause a devastation. But in case of 2004 earthquake, the tsunami waves were about 30 meters of height. And there were series of such kind of tsunami waves which swept out the entire coastal region of that particular epicenter area, which was under the earthquake. So these tsunami waves that have affected the coastal areas of mainly the coastal areas of Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, and Kerala. Most of the people thought that Kerala will not have been affected by the tsunami of 2004 because it was a distance away from the epicenter region, but Kerala was also affected by tsunami of 2004. But mostly the states of Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu were very much affected. And in case of this particular tsunami, there was an indication or a sign, but most of the people were ignorant at that time because when the earthquake took place, the tsunami came about 2 hours later. And everybody at that time, because I just completed my MSc at that time, and it was in the news every day, and most of the people were on the beach at that time because it was nearly at 8 or 8:15 a.m. in the morning, and they were having their morning walks in the Chennai beach, and they have seen that the water has receded about 2.5 kilometers back. That was an indication. And most of the people were very curious about what happened, but they have no idea that such kind of things happen before a tsunami. So this is the thing, that there was less awareness among people about natural disaster, which is very much essential to prevent natural disasters to happen. So uh, but you can see that Andaman was devastated at that time. We know that. We have seen pictures. We have read the news at that time, and but it was not, thought that the tribal people who lives in Andaman area, they were thought to be maximally the population will be devastated by the tsunami. But it was a very interesting fact that all of them survived. Why? Because they have learned the indication traditionally from their folklore, and they have moved to higher grounds. So I think also we have something to learn from them also. Next, coming to these are the facts. I have already discussed that Bihar flood, the United Nations have said that this is the worst event that has happened in the living memory in the 30 years that happened in Bihar, and it mainly affected 10 million people at that time, which was a complete massacre in the month of August due to intolerant rainfall, followed by the Uttarakhand flash flood. We all know it happened in 2013 due to a sudden cloudburst. No one was prepared for this. 4 districts of Uttarakhand were severely affected. Finally, coming to the effect on wildlife. Why I have given a question mark here? Because I have shown you pictures where you can see the damages that have been done in the agricultural field, buildings have collapsed, roads are damaged, but little information is there about wildlife. I have emphasized on this fact that less and less information is provided on what kind of effect it has on wildlife, because India is one of the 12 megadiversity regions of the world. It is one of them, and it harbors a huge number of flora and fauna. And not only that, India also has 2 hotspot regions here. 2 hotspot regions, one in the northeastern part and one in the western Ghats. So if India harbors such a good wealth of biodiversity, then why we are not prepared to protect them from these kinds of natural disasters, or why there is no mention of their effect on the disasters that have on wildlife, or what kind of effect they have on wildlife, how they survive, or how they how they evade such kind of, do they evade, or what kind of changes do they face when such kind of natural disasters happen? Because we may think that natural disasters, that biodiversity and wildlife, they are part of nature, so natural disasters will come and they will cope up with them. This is the general mindset of maybe, but yes, there is it is time that we should think about them, that how these small creatures or large creatures of nature, they have been created by nature, so how they cope with this incidents. So we all know that what is biodiversity. Just 2 basic definitions of biodiversity and wildlife I'm giving here. This is refers to the variability among living organisms. The India, as I've already said, that It has several different variability in its physiography. As a result, it has different kinds of ecosystems, starting from terrestrial to marine to aquatic to desert, mangroves to wetlands, different kinds of ecosystems that harbors a huge wealth of biodiversity, followed by wildlife. Why I am emphasizing on the term wildlife? Because these are the animals or the plants that are found in wild. Because natural disaster management schemes have focused on livestock. Livestock means cattle, sheep, goat, etc. But they have not in such a way focused on wildlife in that case. So I have used the term wildlife. Now coming to the effects, these are the general effects that we have, the natural disasters have on wildlife. Usually the effects are of two basic types or two basic categories. One is the direct effect that they have on our wildlife or flora and fauna. Basically flora, because flora and fauna together, because both are integral part of the ecosystem. One cannot survive without the other. We kill the plants and we say that we can live. No, we cannot do that. We are dependent on the flora. Each and every individual, including us, all living organisms depend on the flora. So the effects can be direct. Direct means either wiping out an entire population, killing them, or just making them extinct. That is the direct effect. Or maybe it is an indirect effect by destroying the natural habitat of the animal, where the animal or the plant lives. A natural disaster can destroy the natural habitat. The habitat may get lost. The habitat may get degraded. The habitat may change. What I mean by the habitat may get changed, this is a fact that whenever there is a natural disaster, uh, there are certain changes in the natural surroundings. And if the wildlife or the animals or the living organisms survive a natural disaster, they may come in contact with the habitat that is not favorable for their survival. So this is an indirect effect, that it has survived the natural disaster, but due to the unavailability of the resource and unavailability of shelter, they may die. So this is the indirect effect that natural disaster have on the wildlife. Now, these are the basic kinds of effects that have the floods. Mainly, the floods are generally affects, they sweep away the habitats. They usually destroy the natural habitats that have been present and killing animals or plants that come in their way. Forest fires are very much harmful for the wildlife because forests are their habitat, also followed by tsunami as well as earthquake. Now, this is an example I have given from the Sumatra Andaman earthquake, the little information that have been provided about the effect of the tsunami of 2004 that have on the natural environment. The first and the foremost thing is that the coastal corals of the Andaman region were severely damaged at that time. And it's known fact that a coral not only itself is an important component of the coastal ecosystem or the marine ecosystem, it also harbors different other life forms that are dependent on it. It's a more or less a symbiotic kind of relationship that it shares with other groups of living organisms that are dependent on it. You can see the picture of the coral that are damaged at that time. And the corals, after getting damaged, not only it damages itself, but also the other living organisms that thrives on them. So removal of a single part of a particular coastal ecosystem can have a devastating effect on the entire ecosystem. And not only that, it also have affected the seagrass communities that are present in the coastal continental shelf areas. They have also affected the microbial areas, as also they have also affected some of the breeding grounds of the birds. You can see a picture that most of the eggs are scattered here. You can see the picture that the two birds are sitting, and they are these are the dead birds. You can see that these are the dead birds. They are not live. Okay. So this is the little information that we have on the Sumatra Andaman earthquake. This is another incident that happened. This is known to be the Kaikoura earthquake that happened in 2016 in New Zealand. And about 25% of the 100,000 birds died due to landslide and rockfall. The bird was a seabird. It's a species belonging to the seabird category, the Hutton's shearwaters. They used to nest on and the breeding colony was there. I will show you the picture. And the nesting ground was totally damaged, killing about 25% of the population. And not only that, it also changed the seabed in such a way that most of the animals that lives on the ocean floor also suffered severely due to that earthquake. And those who have survived that quake have found themselves in a very unfamiliar environment, and which was very difficult for them to survive or to struggle to survive. So I have already said that the devastation that the natural disasters have on wildlife can be direct and indirect. So this is one of the indirect effects that it had on the other surviving individuals of that earthquake. So now the effects of tsunami, as I was talking about the tsunami, mainly it happens that when a tsunami strikes the land, mostly the birds or the seabirds that lays their eggs on the sea beaches, those nests were destroyed. Most of the fishes, they were destroyed. The individuals that lives in the burrows, those burrows were waterlogged. So most of the animals suffocate. And some of the fishes are washed away into the shores and they cannot go back. So as a result, those fishes also suffocate. So there is a huge loss of the marine life. So the marine organisms, we have known that we have known most of the species, but still we know little bit about the marine species. Several marine species are still unidentified, and maybe these natural disasters may have also made certain of some of the marine fauna or flora. Maybe they have gone extinct due to these natural disasters. Maybe because there is little information about it. This is what I was speaking about. This is the habitat of those Hutton shearwaters, and most of the habitats were devastated at that time when the earthquake hit in New Zealand. This is another example, the Wenchuan earthquake that happened in China in 2008. It was the Wolong National Reserve, a very famous reserve for the giant panda. And due to this earthquake, 10% of the forest cover was lost, and many pandas has to be rescued at that time. The earthquake directly hit that particular area, which resulted in several landslides, which usually the obliterated or uprooted most of the trees, which are the host plants of the giant panda. And thus, the giant panda has to be rescued from that area and has to be kept in rescue centers for several times because they were under shock. They have to be recovered from that shock before again letting them entering into the forest. Then there is another a little bit the information about the Nepal earthquake. We know about it. It happened in 2015. About 2,700 landslides occurred due to that earthquake, but very little information is known from their government. I have tried to find out some of the information from their website, but the very little the information is there about how much it has affected the species at that time. Then the volcanic activities also have various effects on the life forms because the warm or the hot lava which generates out from the volcano, it usually kills the terrestrial ecosystem as well as the aquatic ecosystem, because most of the animals are not heat tolerant. They cannot survive in the high temperature that have been generated from the volcanic activity, as also from the volcanic ash that has been generated. These volcanic ash generally create respiratory problems among animals, and the plants also are mainly covered with these ash. The trees, the forest ecosystem, if any forest ecosystem is present in the nearby volcanic region, if there is a volcanic eruption, most of the forest ecosystem will be covered with black soot and ash. This is a picture of the Assam flood, the Kaziranga flood that happened. These are wild buffaloes. So the animals are much more prone to flood because they are usually get drowned due to the flood, and the small animals are much more prone to floods because larger animals, though they have a chance of fleeing away, They can flee away from the ensuing water that has been coming there, but chances are very rare that they will survive, but they can have access to higher grounds. But the smaller animals that I'm referring to are the squirrels, the other kinds of tree dwellers that are specifically tree dwellers. They do not come down. They live in the trees. That is their safe zone. So if the trees get uprooted, they are homeless. So what will happen to them? What can be done for them to overcome these kind of effects? So these kind of animals face the severe damage due to floods and whatever, the earthquakes, whatever kind of it. These smaller animals are the mostly affecting animals at that time. So these are the mainly the effects that have on the animals. These are the pictures that I have collected from the flood. This is from the Kaziranga Wildlife Sanctuary or the national park. Now it's a national park. This is the Kaziranga. You can see the one-horned rhinoceros. It's an endangered animal. At that time, several rhinoceros were killed. They are killed at that time due to that flood, and the number drastically decreased. And now, yes, for the project that has been taken up by the government of India, as well, along with the government of Assam, that the Rhino Vision, that 2020, that has been taken up at that time. It was running a few back for a few years, and that the number has, yes, or on God's grace, that they have increased. Yes, they have increased. So, but at that time, they have faced a shortfall or downfall in their number. Now coming to the forest fires, I have said that the forest fires are the maximum damage created to wildlife, because forests are their home. So if there is a fire in the forest, it will be killing maximum number of animals and destroying the plants, the forest trees, shrubs, herbs, climbers, entire flora. And we are very much aware of the fact about the Amazon forest. That is not a natural fire. We all know it's not a natural fire, because most of the forest fires are anthropogenic in nature. Most of the forest fires. There are certain fires that are natural. Yes, wildfires happen. And the reason for such wildfires is to eliminate the overgrowth of herbs and shrubs, so that a sustainable ecosystem balance can be maintained. Those are natural forest fires. But most of the forest fires that happens nowadays are due to anthropogenic effects. We know that in forests, inflammable items are not allowed to carry, but they are carried. Most of the forest fires that have happened in India are due to lightning from the bidis and the cigarettes that the villagers used to have or consume when they go to collect the branches or the dry branches or leaves. So from that, the fires start. And we have known about the Sydney forest fire that had happened in 2019. It have cleared about 6.3 million hectares of forest. You can imagine the amount of devastation it had. 6.3 million hectares of forest. So think about the marsupials. They are endemic. They are found nowhere else, only in Australia. They are found only there. We do not see a marsupial roaming around in our natural habitat. We can only see them in zoos, because this is not their natural habitat, but they are endemic to Australia. But clearing out of 6.3 million hectares of forest in Australia have raised a question mark about how these kangaroos and koalas and other marsupials will be able to survive if their habitat is lost. So this is an indirect effect. And not only that, you have seen, must have seen the pictures that most of the koalas that have been recovered from that area, they have been burned. So most of them have undergone severe burns. And those were the pictures that have been rescued at that time. Maybe due to some government interference, NGOs working on this field. There are several NGOs which are working on the protection and conservation of the wildlife and biodiversity. They have been rescued. But what about those which are not been rescued? Because it is not possible to go into the forest when there is a blazing fire going on. And if you go into the forest and you cannot locate each and every individual and rescue them. So maybe there are certain survivors at that time that may have survived, but they may have got infection from the burns, which are not cured, which are not been attended. and they must have died from those infections. So we don't have any idea about the loss that have happened during that forest fire in Australia, or the forest fire that happened in 2018 in California. I have given another example that happened in February 2018 in India only. It was in Bandipur Tiger Reserve in Karnataka. About 48,000 hectares of forest land were lost in that incident. So Bandipur is a tiger reserve. So it's specifically meant for the conservation purpose of the habitat of tigers, because it is under the Project Tiger that has been initiated in 1972. So eliminating about 48,000 hectares of forest must have caused some damage to the habitat for the tigers to survive after 2018 February. So we should think about these areas or points. And these wildfires are all anthropogenic fires. They are not natural in nature. They are not natural. So we should be very much conscious about taking inflammable articles inside the forest. So it is our duty to make the villagers living in that area to be aware of the fact that what kind of damage the wildfires can have on a particular forest area. Now, what is the reason that these forest fires are such devastating in nature? That the major reason for forest fires to happen is mainly the forest regions of the dry region are more prone to fires because they receive very low rainfall and they face drier months. The moisture is not present, and as a result, due to the hot climate, a little matchstick or a little glowing bidi can elicitate huge damage. Blazing flames can happen, and the dry wind that is very prevalent in those areas makes the fire to spread rapidly. So this is the most devastation that the forest fires have. The areas that are mainly affected are the Orissa, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh areas. And the major reasons for these are the climatic change that we have, the frequent heat waves that we have during the months of April and May in the northwestern region, and hot and dry conditions that prevail at that time. And this last statistics was provided from the Forest Department of Uttar Pradesh. They said that 40% of Uttar Pradesh forests are susceptible to fire. It was been provided by the forest officials. I have got this information from their website only. Not only that, our Terai region, the Terai Duars region that we have, it is also prone to fire. So it is not only that the dry deciduous forests will be prone to fires. Fires can happen in forests which are also evergreen rainforests. They can also be prone to fires. Now, what kind of effect they have? I have already said that forest fires mainly directly kill the animals. Because it is fire, if an animal comes into the path of the flames, they will be immediately burnt. And if sometimes the animals survive, I have already said that if they survive from these, and the burns are not attended, so just think about yourself. If you get a burn while cooking, you get an immediate attendance while having a burn all or something like that. But the animals do not have that facility. So if those burns are not attended, they can get infected. And those infections can lead to their death. So these are the aftermath. So if the animals do survive, they can also die because of burns, blindness, or respiratory problems that are very much prevalent during these forest fires. Now, I have already mentioned above the other disasters also, that large mammals and birds do have a chance to survive because they can fly away or they can flee. But the animals like squirrels, porcupines, the koalas, because the koalas do not come to the terrestrial ground, they prefer the trees. So these animals are much more vulnerable to the forest fires. The animals which are living under the burrows or in the dens, they may get blocked. They may not get the easy passage to escape. So these animals are much more prone to the forest fires. And the animals who survive these forest fires may also survive the burns, may not get infected, but may die due to starvation, because the forest fire kills their resource. If the forest fire is there, all the natural trees and herbs and shrubs will dry. If a tree dies, a tree is a house or a permanent shelter for several insects, several birds. So all these are interconnected to each other. So if there is a small tampering of the tree, the entire food web, we all know what a food web is. All are interconnected to each other. So if an animal survives also, it will die out of starvation. And another thing that happens due to forest fire is the animals will face a tremendous shock. And this is very difficult for them to come out of this shock because they get panicked. It's very obvious. If our house gets in a flame of fire, we will be in panic. Our mind will not work what to do or what not to do. So they are also like us. We are animals. So by instinct we are animals. So if we get panicked, then the animals will also have that kind of effect on their brain. So this is an immediate effect of a forest fire on animal, that they will go into a immediate period of shock. So the animal may have difficulty in facing the ability to eat, to find out a new shelter, or to protect themselves, because each and every animal have a basic natural instinct of protecting themselves. They can protect themselves from the predators through several survival strategies. Strategies are there, how the animals evade the predators, how they do. So that's a different issue. But in such condition, those animals lose the ability to do so. So these are the basic kinds of effects that these animals or the plants face during a forest fire. These are some of the pictures. The first two pictures, you can see that this was taken of a small kangaroo, and you can see that entire forest is white in color. The color of the white color is due to the ash of the burns that have deposited after the fire has been down for a period. And these last four photos are from the Bandipur Tiger Reserve of Karnataka. Now you can see the damage they have caused. You see that the deer, they are standing there, but what will they eat? There is nothing left. Entire area is burnt down. So what will they thrive on? Now, coming to the storms, this is a very example that I have found. Hurricane Dorian, which happened in Bahama Islands in 2019. You can see the speed was 295 kilometers per hour. And it's a very unique example that I have got, that this Bahama nuthatch, you can see the bird. The Bahama nuthatch is a very small endangered species that has been found in that area. It's a bird. Now, in 2018, there was a cyclone attack, and after that, a census was carried out at that time, and it was found that the Bahama nuthatch number has decreased to only 3. So there were only 3 individuals present. And after the Hurricane Dorian 2019, it was sadly reported that those 3 individuals cannot be spotted. So the government is now thinking that this particular species may have got extinct, because from those 3 individuals, after such an hurricane effect, it is very difficult for them to thrive. Why? Because the reports say that the forest or the habitat on which they used to live were completely destroyed in the Hurricane Dorian. The pine trees that were present were their nesting area, they were completely uprooted in the Hurricane Dorian. So those 3 individuals were not spotted after Hurricane Dorian and may have gone extinct due to the cyclonic storm. Coming to another example, you can see the picture here. These are dead bodies of birds. This happened in Billings, Montana in 2019. It was a supercell thunderstorm, and the hailstones that were deposited at that time were of a size of golf balls, and they directly hit the head of the birds. And thousands of birds were killed in that particular area. You can see the dead bodies that have been loitered here and there. Direct hit of the golf balls that have hit a size of the golf balls and such a great speed, 75 74 miles per hour. That was the strength of the hurricane. If it hit our head, we will also die. So this is the kind of effect a thunderstorm have on the wildlife. Then finally coming to the Amphan that have devastated most of the southern parts of Bengal and Orissa. We have seen several pictures, and this must have been the most devastating cyclone that has ever uh, attacked or been landfall on West Bengal, because it affected Kolkata very much. And we have seen pictures of road damage of roads. Buildings have collapsed. There are several electric wires and cable wires that have been trampled here and there. Trees have been uprooted, and mostly there have been reports about there were electricity blockage. Most of the areas were not in electricity for 3 days, 4 days, maybe 10 days. There were no supply of drinking water. The work was very slow. So, but the trees got uprooted, and we know that trees are very good host or nesting area for birds. But when we were talking about the damage that had Amphan had on Kolkata, nobody speak about what happened to the birds. Because as I am from Kolkata, I lived there for several years, and I am from Kolkata, so I have seen several beautiful birds there, several beautiful butterflies, insects. What about them? Nobody talked about them. We all talked about that electricity was not there, internet was not coming, we cannot surf the internet, we cannot go for WhatsApp, Facebook, whatever. But nobody talked about what happened to the birds. So, so what kind of effect did Cyclone Amphan had on this particular region of West Bengal? We mainly focused on the effect that it had on human lives, on the damages that have been done. We have seen that cars have flown to the aquatic bodies. I have seen a picture that one sumo car, one sumo is drowned into an aquatic body. But we have never thought that drowning of that sumo in the aquatic body may have killed that particular macrophyte that have grown there, or maybe the phytoplanktons or the zooplanktons that are being there in the ecosystem. So we have never thought about that. These are the things that we must think about. And the devastation that had Amphan was on the Sundarban Delta. We have seen pictures of mud homes being swept away, the embankments were destroyed. The nylon net that usually protected the villagers from the tiger attacks, entire net were being swept away. Nothing is left. But Sundarban is considered as UNESCO World Heritage Site because of its unique nature of flora, because of its unique nature of flora, because of the mangrove that it has. And mangrove ecosystem protect us from such kind of cyclone. We have not thought that why Amphan has this effect on Kolkata, because there were several cyclones that have happened in the last years, maybe in 2018, 2013, Foni also, but it did not have a deadly effect on Kolkata. Why? Because Sundarban mangrove acted as a shield to the inland areas of Bengal. So why this kind of deadly effect that happened in Kolkata or the other parts of southern Bengal, Hooghly, maybe some other regions which have been affected by this Amphan? Because deforestation. We have cut out the mangrove ecosystem because of our interest, because of aquaculture, because of agriculture, because of tourism. There are several ecological resorts that have been now built here and there in Sundarban area. So deforestation of these mangroves have increased the proneness of cyclones in Bengal. And Amphan is just an example of what kind of damage a cyclone can do if the mangrove forest is not there. As a result, Sundarban is now considered as the last shield to this kind of cyclonic effect. So maybe this Amphan is an eye-opener. Now we may stop deforesting the Sundarban area. Now we may utilize or make effective certain conservation strategies which may protect and may make use of this biosphere reserve in a sustainable way. So these are the pictures. You can see that the embankments are broken and the water has flooded into the habitats. This is, you can see, this is the nylon net I was talking about, the entire net that have been there. They have been lost and all have been torn apart. And people are now in a fear that the villages are now unprotected because the man-eater, that the Royal Bengal tiger, that's the majestic animal in Sundarban, but they are man-eaters. So this is the threat that the villagers have, and the forest officials are very much worried about such kind of attacks. If happen, the villagers will kill the tigers. So the number of tigers are increased by God's grace. Yes, they have increased. But if these kind of incidents or accidents starts to happen again, then there will be killings of tigers, and it will not be good for the conservation purpose of tigers in Sundarban Delta. Then what kind of loss did happen? That about 40% of the mangrove forest in Sundarban Biosphere Reserve was lost. You can see that it was about 1600 square kilometer area which was damaged due to the Amphan floods, and the loss of wildlife is still not known because most of the areas in Sundarban is still not accessible. It was not possible to go. I have seen pictures of the Dobaki camp. The Dobaki camp area is totally damaged. The entire region is totally. I've seen pictures of several areas of the camp, the Shodnekali, Dobaki, and other camp areas. They were totally damaged. So the loss of the wildlife is still not known because Sundarban, I have said already that it is a very unique flora they have, the mangrove plants they have, and not only that, they also have a very unique group of bird species, insect species. They are there. So there is a little information about what kind of effect Amphan had on those wild animals because access is not there. It is not possible to go into the interiors of Sundarban and to make a census, and right now it is not possible. Maybe we can get some information because in Sundarbans there are devices that have been now adopted to track the route of the tigers and other wild cats that have been present in Sundarban. So, and not only that, this storm also triggered a siltation pattern, and it has opened up several creeks that may have a long-term effect, which may change the tidal pattern as well as may cause a drastic soil erosion in that area. Now, if this soil erosion happens, then it will be very difficult for Sundarban even to shield a next cyclone of this particular range because the speed of Amphan was very high. So if there is a drastic soil erosion in Sundarban due to this Amphan, maybe in future, if such kind of cyclone comes, Sundarban Biosphere Reserve may not be able to protect us from its devastating effect from the future cyclones. So we must be prepared for that. So these are the effects that we have. So now we should think about what can be done. We have studied about the effects, how it happens, what kind of disasters are there. But I have said that from 1999 and to the 2001, those two natural disasters have given a wake-up call to the government of India, and government of India have taken up several initiatives from then only. And the 1990-2000 decade, this 10 years, they were known as the International Decade for Natural Disaster Reduction. The government of India declared this 10 years to set up several frameworks to prevent, because I have said that we cannot control natural disaster. It cannot be controlled. It's natural in nature. We don't have any upper hand on nature. We cannot do that. Nature will do its own way. Nature does what it does. So we cannot control nature. But what we can do, that we can prevent. As we all say that prevention is always better than cure. So if we can prevent, at least reduce the risk, then at least some things, some lives can be saved, some devastations can be restricted. So socioeconomic balance can also be maintained, because the disaster not only causes damage, it also hampers the country economically also. So this 10 years were taken into account by the government of India. And as I have said, that the super cyclone of Orissa and that of Gujarat have been the eye-opener for the government of India, and they have taken up several multidisciplinary approaches and involving different sectors, be it scientific, be it engineering, be it financial or social. So they have involved different sectors, a multidisciplinary approach to reduce the risk of such kind of natural disasters. And one important thing that should be kept in mind before reducing the risk, that three things are very important: prevention, mitigation, and preparedness. These three are the major components that should be dealt with for natural disaster management. Now, this is taken up during those 10 years that I am referring to, a national disaster framework. It's a roadmap. What kind of prevention strategies should be taken, what warning systems should be present, what warning systems were present at that time, and how they should be upgraded or updated, and what kind of preparedness or response patterns to be made, teams to be set up, how they can be done. So this was the national disaster framework that was being made at that time, and it was distributed among the states and the union territories, so that coordination can be done between the central and the state government and the union territory administration. And then the Central Relief Commissioner of the Ministry of Home Affairs, he was appointed as the nodal officer, and you can see a set of departments and ministries that have been now constantly working on this natural disaster management scheme. You can get all this information if you go into the National Disaster Management Authority website. Now, the Government of India has also set up a National Crisis Management Committee and crisis management groups, and they have said that the developmental projects, be it industry or be it any kind of building project, buildings, dams, whatever, what kind of construction or developmental projects have been run, there has to be passed through these committees before implementation. Then there are control rooms, which are known as emergency operation centers, that usually keep a check of the different kinds of informations that have been gathered from different areas. There are national contingency action plan. These are the contingencies that are being made ready if there is a natural disaster to happen. Because see that we were not ready about the COVID-19 pandemic. We are not ready for that, because there were no strategy, no plan, and that's why this global pandemic has given us a setback. That what to do? We had no idea of this virus. We have no idea what kind of infection will it happen. We are learning. We are gradually learning. But each and every natural disaster gives us a pathway of preparing ourselves. So these are the national contingency action plans that have been taken. What contingencies can we keep in hand? They may work in the future, natural disaster may not work, but we have to be ready for that. Because if now we are ready, the vaccines have been in process. We know several ideas and things about the COVID-19, the coronavirus, how it acts, the 14-day quarantine, the medicines, maybe the possible medicines that can be given to the patients. These informations have came. So maybe another set of such kind of epidemic, if comes in future, these may work or may not work, but we have to be ready for that. That is why a national contingency action plan is very necessary. And each state government has their own way of working with the calamity relief fund that have been set up. Then these are the ways by which the monitoring is being done. The foremost part is the India Meteorological Department keeps track of the tropical cyclone, and they have used the satellites for knowing the track of the cyclone, forecasting the cyclones, and there have been satellite integrated automated weather stations which have been installed in different areas, mainly into the coastal areas which are more prone to cyclonic attacks, and buoys have been deployed. These buoys are generally deployed into the oceanic floor, which can detect the changes in the waves, the wave pattern. They can detect that, the oceanic wave pattern. So they have been detected, and all the data have been stored in the National Data Buoy Program. And then there are several radar systems are now being deployed. The gradual development is on the way, and 10 cyclone detection radars have already been installed, which can provide information up to a range of about 300 to 400 kilometers. So these kind of management strategies are now being taken up by the Government of India. Then the Central Water Commission is in charge of the forecasting of floods. And you can see that there is a flood forecasting network, and about 166 flood forecasting stations are present that have been now monitoring the different patterns of flood that may happen. Nowadays we usually get the forecast of flood depending on the rainfall pattern that have been present here. And the monitoring of the floods are mainly being placed in 4 categories: low flood, medium flood, high flood, and unprecedented flood. Unprecedented means which cannot be controlled. We cannot do anything for this. And there are several computerized monitoring systems are now which are being monitoring the entire information from all the 166 stations, and the entire data is being forwarded to Delhi. Then I have already said that disaster prevention, mitigation, and preparedness are the 3 major components of disaster management, and Government of India has issued guidelines for that. And then there are national core groups for earthquake mitigation. Not only that, there are national core group for the cyclone monitor. I'm not going into the details, but what they do is that I was saying about the fact that when there was a super cyclone in Orissa or the Gujarat earthquake, we're not ready for that because mostly those areas which are present in a earthquake prone zone, they have been now categorized as seismic zones 3, 4, and 5, like that. These donations have been done on the intensity of the earthquakes they may have. Like that, the categories are done. So building constructions and industrializations in those areas should be made following certain protocols. And these protocols are only known to us after the earthquake that happened in Bhuj. So nowadays, these National Core Group for Earthquake Mitigation, they mainly educate engineers and administrators so that the buildings that are being made in those areas can withstand earthquakes. So it's mandatory for engineering colleges to keep earthquake engineering in their syllabus at undergraduate level. And several workshops, several seminars, several conferences are being taken up by this National Core Group to teach the engineers, the government officials, and other voluntary organizations who work on the aftermath of earthquakes, so that the people may get aware of what kind of construction to be made in those regions. Similarly, a National Core Group for Cyclone Monitoring Mitigation has been done. We'll look into the similar manners. And these cyclone monitoring groups, they try to make people aware. They try not only to make people aware, they also try to take the involvement of the local people during a particular natural disaster. And now we can see that the central government is in the process of training and equipping 96 specialist search and rescue teams. This is very important, that after the natural disaster has taken place, that rescue teams and search teams should be fully trained so that they can rescue as many lives as possible, be it human or wildlife. So these national specialized teams have been now made, which includes different persons from different fields, which can mitigate these kinds of natural disasters. And the states have also been advised to set up their own specialized teams. During this Amphan, we have seen that our government has also got their specialist teams who work day and night for this whatever damage this Amphan have made on. And we know that the army play a very important role in construction of the roads and the houses that have been damaged during cyclones. And 14 regional response centers have been set up in different parts of the country. It's a new initiative that has been taken just a few years back. It's a 200-bedded mobile hospital that's been set up in Delhi, and the government is now trying to set up more such mobile hospitals. And this GIS-based data has been stored, which are being effective in prevention and also being making preparedness for future natural disasters. Now, coming to the final part, that what kind of animal preparedness has been made, because they also face a similar kind of devastation that we face. So as I have already seen, that rescue teams are very much important to search and locate and isolate those affected animals, treat them properly, and then again relocate them into their natural habitat when the habitat is suitable for them. It's not only that I rescue a particular koala or a giant panda or a kangaroo or a tiger from a particular area, treat it, give it some medicine, and then again release it into the environment which is not suitable for it. So we should keep the animal under watch. We should see that the animal is out of shock. The animal is not under any panic attack. The animal is now being able to cope with the environment by itself, and the habitat in which it used to live is in its normal form, that it has recovered. Then only it can be again released into the wild. So this is the primary goal that should be kept in mind before releasing an animal, that the animal should reach its original habitat, not an unfamiliar environment which will be very difficult for it to survive. Then that I have said, that the proper care and nurture for the rescued animals, and not only that, to rescue as much possible. Yes, it seems a very tiresome job, but if we love nature, we can do it. And then just to delineate the effect of forest fire, we can generate corridors and gaps between forests. You know that if a long stretch of area has been deforested, cut down, the trees have been cut down, and then the forests, the fires will not spread instantaneously. It will remain limited to a certain area. So the creation of such corridors or gaps are very much essential. And nowadays these have been done, that there have been corridors that are being made between the forests. So if a certain area gets flame starts to arise, it will remain in that area and it will not spread in the other areas. So in this way we can mitigate the effect of the forest fire that may have on a mass scale. It may be a local loss, but in mass it will be preserved. And of course, training and awareness of the local people and their involvement in the process of rescue, that can accelerate the process and save as much lives as possible. So these are the basic methods. We need to work on several other methods also. And one more thing that should be kept in mind, that nature itself has its own way to heal itself. Yes, nature do have that. And each and every ecosystem, they can rejuvenate and revert back to its original form. And this kind of ability of any ecosystem to recover back into its original form is known as its resilience. Because the title of this webinar series is the interpretation of the survival strategies of nature. So this is one of the survival strategy of nature, that it have the ability to grow. We call this process succession. So if there is a forest fire and all the trees are dead, all are burnt out, maybe there are certain seeds there are certain twigs which can again regrow, because most of the animals and the plants have very high reproductive rate. From zero, they can be 1,000. So this is the ability that nature has given them and not given us, because we don't have that high reproductive rate. We cannot grow from zero to 1,000 in 2 or 3 days. But yes, wildlife can. Biodiversity, the species can, living organisms can. We know bacteria how fast it grows. So this resilience is one of the survival strategies that nature has, by which it can overcome a natural disaster. And the effectiveness, how fast the ecosystem can regrow, is the robustness of the system. So these two are very important terms that are now being dealt with for rejuvenating nature into its original form. And after any natural disaster, each system starts to recover from scratch, and and in doing that process, maybe some species may get lost, but some may evolve also. So finally, we can see that this COVID-19 pandemic, the coronavirus, have quarantined us in our homes. We are now in a new normal lifestyle where we are working from home. I am delivering this lecture on a web and an online platform. I have never thought of this, that I'll be delivering a lecture and everybody will be listening, sitting at home, because we are used to a different set of lifestyle. Schools and colleges were still shut. All the classes are going online. We are quarantined there, and we are very much learning new terms that are never been able, because in my lifetime I have not seen such kind of pandemic, such kind of natural disaster. It's a biological disaster. So, and the Amphan that have followed the COVID pandemic, and then the locust surge, the heat waves that have struck Delhi and Rajasthan and other areas of Haryana and Punjab also. So there are several series of natural disasters. The intensity may be high and low, but there are natural disasters going on. The frequency have increased. I've said that vulnerability have increased. So the frequency of natural disasters have increased. So I think that wish that nature has given us some time, because we are locked inside our homes. We have learned certain new times like quarantine, isolation, lockdown. The entire world was under lockdown for 3 months, complete lockdown for 3 months. So nature has given us a chance, a fair chance to think about how to conserve what is with us, what we can do about the biodiversity and the living world around us. So it is time we think about it, because nature has given us a fair chance, and nature has given us a time to rethink about it, because we have seen that nature have already started to reclaim its spaces. It's in the news that several animals are loitering into the parks, which have been, I said, which are desolated because nobody is going out. So we have seen that the dolphins are visiting the Italy coast, and several other. The Gangetic dolphins have come out. We haven't seen them in maybe last 10 years. I have not seen the Gangetic dolphins, which are very common, because we have, during our childhood times, we used to say, "Arey, ekhane to shushu kashe." But yeah, I have not seen them. Maybe I don't remember. So they have started to return. So this is a positive effect of COVID pandemic, I think. Yes, they have taken several lives. They have changed our lifestyle, but yes, the positive effect is that Earth is healing. So I will conclude with this remark that we do not owe the Earth, but only a meager part of it. We share it with all other beautiful creatures living around us. So do conserve and do love nature and the wildlife around us. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for your extremely delicate and enlightened presentation. And at the same time, it is pathetic to on learning about the devastating condition of the wildlife habitations due to different types of natural disasters and the alarming signal of disbalance of biodiversity. So thank you, ma'am. Thank you once again. And this is the time for the question answer session. And due to time constraint, we'll take limited number of questions both from Google Meet and YouTube Live. Some participants from YouTube Live and Google Meet have more than one questions, but we have to take one for the limited time. So first one is from Anisha Kaur, YouTube Live. Ma'am, why does the water recede from the coastal line before a tsunami? This is a question for Anisha Kaur.
Yes, this is not a mandatory response that every time there will be an oceanic earthquake that the water will recede back. But there are certain geological or geomorphic changes that happens in the oceanic floor, the continental shelf, that helps in the water to recede back. There is a flow backwards, which takes out the water waves that are coming in front. As a result, the water recedes back. But this is not, it never happens every time. It depends on the intensity of the earthquake, the intensity of the tremor that is happening on the oceanic floor.
Okay, I think Anisha has got her reply. And next one from Shubhadeep Dey. Do you think removal of all villages near from the tiger habitation village in Sundarban would conserve tigers more appropriately and reduce the tiger animal conflict? Do you think so?
Well, removal is not possible because that is their habitation. But I have already said that whatever development or whatever what to say, that whatever we do, we should be doing it in a sustainable way, and the villages has to be made more aware, because government has made several rules in Sundarban. If you have visited Sundarban, you have known that all the areas are not open to all. Well, and the tiger zone, now the Amphan has devastated the nylon netting. But if you have visited Sundarban, you must have seen that the area where the villagers are present, those areas are being netted, so that the tigers do not come out and attack the youth. So the attacks have receded very much. So human habitation cannot be shifted. What we have to do is to coexist, learn to coexist with each other. That is the ultimate goal, that we have to coexist with each other. That I've said, that we do not own this earth, we only share it. So we have to coexist with each other.
Okay, ma'am. And anybody from Google Meet, do you have any question to Moitreyee, ma'am?
Yeah, I'm Sudesh speaking.
Please tell your name and affiliation.
I'm a student from London University, Sudesh Govt. My question to you is like, I'll first name the species. A few.
I cannot hear.
I can't hear you properly.
Krishna,
Hello.
please
can't
go
hear
into
you
your microphone little difference. Make a difference between your mouth and microphone.
Hello.
Yes.
Is it audible now?
Yes.
Okay. I'll first name the species and then I'll state my question. The species Asmis macabre, which is already a threatened golden jungle cat and other Malayan giant squirrels, they are spreading playing.
Malayan giants, I cannot hear. The voice is cracking.
Okay.
Sudesh, sorry, we can't hear you properly, so we have to leave now, but we have the time limitation. Anybody from Google Meet? Do you have any question?
Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes,
I am
yes.
Shamli Patro from P.R. Thakur Government College, Department of Geography. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your informative lecture. My question is, you told that Kolkata has focused Amphan so badly because of the less mangrove seed. And I am also agree with you that Amphan is helped to increase the degree of damage. But the question is it only the reason that the less mangrove shield, whereas IMD forecast earlier that Amphan has been passed through the Kolkata, because the path of the Amphan is very close to Kolkata.
Yes, of course. That I say that one of the reasons of those devastating effects, that deadly effect, I have used the term deadly effect, because there were several. You have seen about the Ayla. You have heard about it, right? Ayla.
Yes.
That passed through Durgapur and Birbhum region of the. So it was also very huge storm, but the effect was not deadly as that of Amphan. That's why I emphasized on the fact that deforestation of the mangrove, because mangrove provides the preliminary shield.
Yes,
If
yes.
a particular storm falls on the landfall, the first attack, the first landfall was on Sundarbans, and the majority of the speed gets diminished if it hits a mangrove. And then the rest of the speed that enters into the inland is very less from the previous speed that enters. So that is the preliminary defense that I have said.
Yes. Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Okay, the last question for our session, Mukti Prakash Roy question is, ma'am, what's your take on the level of environment consciousness among the political leaders all over the world? They are the policy makers after all. So what do you think?
Well, I have already pointed out that after the super cyclone of Orissa and that of the Gujarat earthquake, the government of India has taken up several initiatives, and I have mentioned all of them. If anybody is interested, they can also visit the website of the CRED as well as NDMA, all the websites, and you can see the different schemes and the programs that have been taken up for the national disaster management that have been now taken up with the government of India. So I think yes, more work needs. There are need of more work, but yes, still we are working on it. Yes, we are working on it.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Now we have to finish this session, and thank
Okay.
you all for your live participation. Now I request Dr. Nivedita Bain, Joint Convener and Faculty Department of Sociology of P.R. Thakur Government College, to conclude the second session of our webinar series. Nivedita, please continue.
Thank you, Rimi. Thank you very much, Moitreyee Banerjee, for delivering such a informative, knowledge, full of knowledge and very well explained presentation and very
Thank you.
pertinent for this time. I just want to share two or three sentences or two or three ideas of mine to conclude this session. That recently on 25th of June, Richard H. Grove, who was a historian, died. Uh, Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Hello.
Please continue.
Yeah.
We can hear you.
So, yeah. So Richard Grove, who died on 25th of June of this year, wrote a very interesting book that is called Green Imperialism. There he wrote that is really intriguing for me. That he told us that we human beings always love to imagine a exotic image of nature. Actually, we can't imagine or can't understand nature the way nature itself we can or we cannot. We are actually in a dilemma in defining how we could define nature. So he defined this way of defining nature as kind of utopian image or disembodied image of nature, where we always find a serene picture like a river is passing down and pictures views are there, etc., etc. So whenever we are seeing or finding ourselves that we are not being able to see this that pictures idea or pictures nature, then we feel that we are actually we are facing that what I say that we are actually extinct. We are going to be extinct completely from this art. So, to protect ourselves from being extinct from this art, we have started, organizing various movements. So, as a part of this movement, I don't think that this is absolutely bad as or something like that. Rather, I am very hopeful that finally we, the people of the human being, as a species, understood or have understand that they can fight back and they can re-establish this relationship between the nature and the nurture thing, that is the culture that we are practicing every day. So by telling this, I just want to tell that thank you very much once again for sharing your thoughts, and thank you very much for other people who participated in this seminar or webinar series. This is the second day, and I hope that you people will join the third day. That's the 15th of July. And until then, I would like to say you goodbye and take care. Thank you very much, and end the session.